The blaring lights of the backstage arena were blinding, beating down on my sweaty forehead like the summer sun. I was standing near the soundboard in a worn-out flannel shirt, grease-stained jeans, and steel-toed boots, holding a roll of gaffer tape. I was just a night shift audio technician, a widowed black father trying to earn enough overtime to pay for my 7-year-old daughter Maya's asthma medication. I kept my head down, wrapped cables, and stayed invisible. In the glitzy world of multi-platinum pop stars, guys like me were just background noise. Then, the heavy arena doors slammed open, and Jackson Reed stormed into the soundcheck. Jackson was the biggest pop sensation in the country, arrogant, wildly famous, and notorious for treating the crew like dirt. He threw his iced coffee against the wall, splashing espresso across my boots, and started screaming at the tour manager. His headliner concert was in 2 hours. 80,000 fans were waiting outside, and his voice was completely shot from a weekend of wild partying. When a vocal coach told him he couldn't hit his signature high notes for the soundcheck, Jackson snapped. His furious eyes scanned the empty stage, looking for someone to humiliate, until his gaze landed right on me. He marched down the ramp, snatched a wireless microphone off the stand, and shoved it hard against my chest. "You!" Jackson sneered, his voice raspy and cruel as his entourage burst into laughter. "You think this job is easy? You think setting up my stage gives you the right to look at me like that? Take the mic, tech boy. Sing the chorus of my hit song right now, or you're fired before the sun sets." The entire arena floor went dead quiet. 50 crew members, lighting techs, and executives froze, staring at me in pity. My blood ran cold, and my heart began hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I couldn't lose this job. If I got fired tonight, I couldn't afford Maya's prescriptions tomorrow. I looked down at the heavy black microphone in my trembling, calloused hands. Jackson leaned back against the barrier, folding his arms with a toxic smirk, waiting for me to choke, waiting for me to embarrass myself so he could feel powerful. What Jackson didn't know was that 10 years ago, before my wife passed away, and before I gave up every dream I ever had to raise my baby girl alone, I was the lead soloist in a gospel choir. I had buried my voice deep inside my soul the day I laid my wife to rest, swearing I would never sing another note without her. But as I looked at the smug pop star sneering in my face, something inside me snapped. A quiet, roaring fire ignited in my chest. I closed my eyes, took a deep, steadying breath, and lifted the microphone to my lips. The piano chord for the chorus echoed through the massive, empty arena speakers. I opened my mouth, and the first note hit the air. It wasn't just a sound, it was a thunderclap. My voice exploded through the $3 million sound system, rich, deep, and dripping with raw, soul-shaking power. Jackson's smirk instantly vanished. His mouth fell half open. I didn't just sing the chorus. I took the song completely away from him. I poured 10 years of pain, 10 years of late-night shifts, 10 years of loving my daughter, and all the heartbreak of losing my wife into every single word. The melody surged through the dark arena, vibrating the floorboards beneath our feet. Then came the bridge, the legendary high note that Jackson had to auto-tune on his studio record, the note he couldn't hit live to save his life. I leaned back, gripped the mic tight, and unleashed a soaring, effortless whistle register note that echoed through the rafters. It was a note so pure, so high, and so unbelievably powerful that the chief audio engineer at the mixing desk accidentally dropped his headphones in sheer shock. The sound resonated off the concrete walls, holding steady for 5 agonizing, beautiful seconds before I brought it down into a smooth, buttery gospel run that left the entire room breathless. When the final note faded into the silence of the massive stadium, nobody moved. Nobody even breathed. My chest was heaving. I stood there in my dusty work boots, the microphone still in my hand, looking straight into Jackson's eyes. The pop star was frozen like a statue, pale as a ghost, staring at me as if he had just seen a god walk down from the sky. His entourage stood motionless, their jaws practically resting on the floor. Suddenly, from the far corner of the stage, a single pair of hands began to clap. then another, and another. Within 5 seconds, all 50 crew members, the riggers, the roadies, the lighting directors, the security guards, erupted into a roaring standing ovation that rattled the stadium walls. Men were shouting, stomping their feet, and whistling. Jackson stood paralyzed in the middle of the chaos, completely humiliated, stripped of his arrogance by a man he had called Tech Boy just 2 minutes ago. Before Jackson could utter a single word, a tall woman in a sharp white designer suit stepped out from the shadowed VIP tunnel. Her eyes locked onto me. It was Marcus Vance's legendary music executive, Sarah Sterling, the CEO of the largest record label in the country, the woman who had built Jackson's entire career from scratch. She walked straight past the trembling pop star, ignoring him completely, and stopped right in front of me. "What is your name?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling with genuine awe. "Marcus," I said, wiping a bead of sweat from my forehead. "I'm just a technician." Sarah looked at my calloused hands, then at my worn clothes, and finally deep into my eyes. "You are not a technician, Marcus," she said softly, but loud enough for the entire arena to hear. "You are the greatest vocalist I have heard in 20 years. She turned around, looked at Jackson with cold disappointment, and said, "Jackson, pack your bags. Your tour is canceled." Jackson gasped, his face turning beet red. "What? You can't do that. The show is in 2 hours. 80,000 people bought tickets." Sarah turned back to me, a brilliant, knowing smile spreading across her face. "The show isn't canceled," Sarah said, reaching in her jacket to pull out a golden pen and a blank artist contract. "It just has a new headliner." She looked at me with absolute authority. "Marcus, if you step on that stage tonight, I will pay off your house, cover every medical bill your child ever sees, and make you a star before midnight. What do you say?" My mind raced. I thought about my little girl, Maya, sitting at home in her small bedroom, waiting for her daddy to bring home medicine. I thought about all the nights I had starved so she could eat. I looked Sarah dead in the eye, took a deep breath, and smiled. "I say, give me a suit that fits." 2 hours later, the arena doors opened. 80,000 fans flooded into the stadium, screaming and waving glow sticks, expecting to see a lip-syncing pop star. Instead, the lights went completely dark. A single spotlight shone down on the center stage, illuminating a tall black father in a crisp black suit, holding the microphone with the quiet grace of a man who had survived the storm. Behind the curtain, sitting in the front row with wide, glowing eyes, was my 7-year-old daughter Maya, wearing heavy noise-canceling headphones, waving her tiny hand at me. I looked at my baby girl, smiled, and lifted the microphone to my mouth. And as my voice filled the stadium, making 80,000 people scream in sheer disbelief, I knew that our lives were changed forever, and no one would ever make us feel invisible again.